gardener volunteer. I became a master gardener in 1992. And when you start being a master gardener, you have really no idea where your interests are going to come from. You're just kind of all over the place. But very shortly, composting really fascinated me. I took the compost courses through Metro. And then compost you lead into soils, and then you lead into decomposition, and you end up with slugs and snails. I get to be the slug lady. Yay! So slugs and snails have been with us for about 250 million years, and over time they have evolved to be this perfect specimen of eating. That is their job. Their job is deconstruction, decomposition, and they will eat anything they can. They eat 30 to 40 times their weight a day. And the other job is reproduction. They want to make sure that we have slugs and snails with us for eons. And so that what we're going to talk about today is we're going to learn about their biology, how they work. And once you understand that, then it makes sense when you go into these different maintenance and kill measures. This will not be for the faint of heart. So a slug and snail, and sometimes I'll use those phrases interchangeably because a snail is basically a slug with a shell. But they're both mollusks. They're in the same family as octopus. They breathe, they move on a muscular foot. That muscular foot produces slime, and it leaves chemical trails that others can follow. And they're pretty cool. West of the Rockies, there's 2,000 different species of slugs. There's 10 in Oregon, different species. And our only native is the banana slug, which is that long yellow one, sometimes with spots. The neat thing about the banana slug is that doctors are finding that the slime that it produces helps deliver cancer treatments to patients. So we're going back to the days when leeches were important. So this is what the slug looks like. They have optic tentacles at the top, and they can't see pictures, but they can see light and dark. The sensory tentacles can sense where there's food. They can smell. It's a taste. Also before they eat them. The pneumostome, the respiratory spore is one, and it works like a whale's. It goes open and closes. And the foot and the skirt. So you can have all different kinds of slugs. They can be short slugs. They can be large slugs. Slugs usually live 1 to 2 years. They mature at 3 months. And guess what? They're hermaphrodite. That means that they can breed with anyone. And then at the end, they both carry eggs. They can also self-reproduce. And then they lay up to 400 eggs a year in different clutches. Usually they start now. I've seen adult slugs in my garden. They've gone to heaven. And I've seen my first snail, and he went also. So they're out and about. They usually start waking up when the soil reaches 50 degrees, and I tested my soil yesterday, and it is now 50 degrees. So all your gardeners waking up, and the snails and the slugs are waking up too, because they wake up basically when everything will start growing, and they're young. The plants are young and fresh and green and fun to eat. This is one that looks, you get to see the picture. The cauliflower is at the very tip. The body, the foot fringe, the tentacles. The mucus and the slime, and I'll use those phrases interchangeably too. They're for locomotion, defense, they leave chemical traces. They're important to find a mate. And there are 2 types of mucus. The slippery mucus, and that allows the slug or the snail to just kind of creep over something that's rocky. And the viscous mucus that they exude lets them climb. And this is how you can find slugs or snails in trees. I find them climbing up my house. Or if you put your most precious hosta in a pot, they can climb up the pot over the lip. And the pots usually have a lip, and then they can hide. So that's one place always to check. It's a viscous, it's very sticky. And if you ever hand-pick a slug or snail, then you have that slime on your hand. Use vinegar and warm water to get it off. Otherwise, it's kind of like rubber cement. It sticks to you. So these are a pair of Pacific banana slugs mating. The mating can sometimes last up to half an hour. It's an elaborate courtship ritual. And then they have babies. I really like them. I'm fascinated by slugs and snails, and I know that I have to kill them, but I just find them fascinating. So the slug eggs and the snail eggs look like they're very clear, transparent, spherical. If you've ever had an aquarium and had a snail in there to clean the algae that grows on it, and they lay eggs, that's what it looks like. And slugs lay them in the top portion of the dirt, or under bricks, under the undersides of leaves. If you ever find a cluster of eggs underneath a leaf in your garden, that's probably a slug.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Okay.
Slug contraction behavior, they can squeeze you down if they sense danger, or if it's too dry, then they can contract down to the size of pay, and then when the situation improves, then they come up to their normal size. They can travel 40 feet in a night. One author I was reading said, being a slug is like being in the grocery store line. You just have to go to your Zen happy place. Okay. This is slug damage. I know we've all seen it. It can be vicious. And the way that a slug eats is it has a soft mouth, and it has a radula, which is like a tongue. And the radula has up to 27,000 backward-facing teeth. And it's like a shark. They can lose teeth, and then they're replenished. And it's the radula that grasps it and pulls it into the mouth. And then the bottom mouth acts like it's a guillotine and cuts it off, and then it goes through. And then through a series of, they have a little bitty gizzard, and sometimes they take in soil, and it crunches it up, and then goes out. Here are two happy slugs. See how moist they are? They constantly need to be moist. And one of the ways that you can kill them is to take away the moisture. But that's why you don't see them during hot, dry days. It's not good for them, and that's why they hide. Normally, there's only 5% of slugs above ground, all the rest are underground. And they can dive, is wrong word. They can go down to about 6 feet, where it's dark and moist, and survive. Probably not in Oregon with our clay soils. But so they can dig down to where it's moist and they feel safe, and then they come up in the night to eat. Look at this. Who knows what that plant was, but it's gone. But what I wanted to show you is how they can climb. So here's a snail. So it's basically the same function, except the shell covers kind of the delicate parts. They don't have, neither slug or snail has a brain. They just have ganglia up there that kind of receive information. Every slug and every snail has both male and female parts. Sometimes you can tell the age of a snail by the number of rings it has. You know, sometimes you might actually want to study this stuff. This is a snail with a sealed opening. It's called an epiphragm. And during winter, when it's very cold, they will hide someplace and then create this substance with their own mucus that they glide on, and calcium carbonate. Their shells are made out of calcium carbonate, which is basically lime. And they create this. And I found them, and they touch it. It feels like silly putty, if you ever played with that as a child. And it's really cool because it lets water evaporate, and yet it lets air in so that they can breathe. It lets humidity evaporate and carbon dioxide. So it's water porous and water tight at the same time. It's pretty neat. In the winter it's called hibernation, and in the summer it's called estivation. So if the conditions are too hot and too dry, they will do this. And when I found the slug in my pot, it was in the summer and it was too hot. Darn. Okay. So the brown garden snail, this is the one that's really causing havoc. They estimate in the California nurseries, where most of our product comes from, they cause between $7 and $12 million damage a year. And this little guy was brought to the United States by a Frenchman in the 1850s for escargot. So they brought it over, and it was sent to San Francisco, and they escaped, like most slugs and snails can, and it spread. And now it's in Oregon, and the Oregon Department of Agriculture has determined that we cannot eradicate them. They are too numerous, so we just have to deal with it. And the way this may be a bit too much, but the way that you can tell a brown garden snail from the thousands of other species of snails that we have in Oregon is that we don't have enough lime in our soil for the shell to get very hard. So you can squish them to death with your fingers. But if you have to stomp on them, then you know it's another kind of snail. But usually you can tell because they're specks. So they have the same kind of damage as slugs. My neighbors let me garden on their side of the property yard lots. There's only 10 feet between our houses, and they let me garden on their 5 feet. Yay! So I can create paths, and my favorites are shade gardens and big leaves. So on my neighbor's property, there's a heat pump that I desperately wanted to hide, but I only have 5 feet, so I couldn't have a gunner up, and I love big stuff like that. So I put it in an ornamental rhubarb, big old leaves, and it gets about 5 by 5. I'm really happy. Well, there was a snail right at the top. He was perky and happy, and it's like king of the world. I made it, and right here. And I was walking with my friend, and I was showing her my garden, and I said, oh, and I picked it up and stamped on it, and we went on. And a couple weeks later, she said, you know, that really was a bit harsh. So we had a small lesson on the reproductive capabilities of snails and slugs. And I know that now if I never do that in front of someone, I need to explain what I'm doing. But I'm not an animal lecturer out there. So snails mature later. So slugs can mature at 3 months and start reproducing. Snails usually take 1 to 2 years before they reproduce, but they have the same capacity to do 400 or 500 eggs a year. Okay, just say that only half of those eggs survive because they're open to predators and to gardening, things happen. Each one of those survives, and then they can reproduce. You can just see it's an explosion. This is one of the reasons that you have to just understand that it's something that you need to do all the time in bait and be on the lookout for them. When there's snow, luckily nothing's there hibernating. You don't have to worry about it. But now that I've seen the first ones out, I'm already baiting. If our winter is mild and much milder than this year, I bait every month with slug, just because my garden apparently has everything they love to eat. So here are snails climbing a tree. And apparently they like to be together because they're all clustered. Okay, and that's slugs on the other side, and these are snails. So both slugs and snails prefer nocturnal times because it's cooler and it's usually moister. Now is the time that they're coming out and they start reproducing right away. And then the eggs mature in just several weeks, and then after they mature, they're ready to go and eat and reproduce. They love to be moist. And the dryness is the worst thing that can happen to them, and above 50 degrees. Yay, my soil now is 50 degrees, so I know that they're out. So how do we control these little guys? So control takes many. There's really no one thing that works. You have to do hand picking, baits and traps, bait frequently, be on the lookout for them. Try to keep the plants, the kind of plants you grow, don't have ones necessarily that they love to eat, like my yard. There are several tactics that you can use. It's just not one thing. You're always looking after them to see how you can control them. Choose your plants. So as I said, my favorite garden is a shade garden. I used to have many hostas, and they were decimated. And the turning point was several years ago. I was on a garden tour, and it was not a pretty garden tour because in August, who does that? But by that time, all the slugs I just had veins of hostas. I didn't have leaves of hostas. So it became a learning opportunity. And that was the time I decided, this next year, either I control the slugs or I'm getting rid of all my hostas. So then I'm out. I'm baiting, I'm hand picking, I'm out at 9 o'clock at night with my flashlight, picking them up and squishing them, putting them in soapy water. And I was religious. I did a very good job, and it made no difference. So the next year I dug up all my hostas, which killed me, and now I have ferns, epimediums, things that, more native things that they don't eat like hostas. Well, I do have 3 hostas, and they're in pots. And they're in pots so I can put metaldehyde product around them so my dog can't get them. My dog, all my dogs actually, they seem to like slugs and snails. You know, it's like a 2-year-old. They put anything in their mouth. And then you get puree of slug and you try to get it out. By the way, as being a master gardener, one of the things that you do is if you're going to work with people and in the public, you need to be recertified each year. And so down at Oregon State one year, I took a class called The Good, Bad, the Ugly. And there were all these ginormous insects and pests and things, and I'll never travel to South America, ever. And one of the things that they showed was a 3-foot slug. And then, it's like a foot wide. And it's common down there. But the tribes capture them, and they're not moving real fast. And they slice and dice them, and it's like a steak. Well, if you think about it, a slug is what it eats. And if you have good stuff around, then it's full of proteins and nutrients, yay? So, but you want to choose your plants. Well, if you want to find hostas like I do, then put them somewhere where you can bathe without damage to other animal or bird forms, fish forms. So, and this is on your handout, plants that are resistant to slugs love to eat. And most of those things are in my garden or were. Okay, so the keep out method. Irrigation timing is everything. I live in a homeowners association, and the watering system is governed by the gods in the neighborhood. And I've convinced them that in my house, do not water at night, at 10 o'clock at night, because you're just making it perfect conditions for snail and slugs. So now I water, especially in the summer when it's over 90, I water at 6 in the morning and then again at 8. And then that's it. So by the time, theoretically, when sun is down, my soil is dry, and it will not be conducive to slugs and snails being in my yard. However, my neighbors on either side still water at night, and so I get the crossover. But I really have seen a diminishing level of damage. Tilling is good. So what you want to do is till so that what you're doing is getting rid of the eggs, and you're not creating places that they can hide. But as we learn, sometimes tilling can do bad things for your soil because it destroys its structure and the microbial and the good things that are living in the soil. Mulch is beneficial, as gardeners we know, for many reasons, but it's perfect for the slugs and snails because it's so fluffy that they can just get in and hide. Hand picking, we've talked about this, it's very viscous. You just pick them up. Sometimes it's better to use tweezers and then dump them into a bucket of soapy water. Copper is pretty good, and the thinking is that they get an electric shock, and so they won't cross it. But what's sold in the stores isn't wide enough, because a slug or snail, especially a slug, can kind of arch itself and go over the copper. So what you want to do is or make your rows double, so that they're about 4 feet, and then it works. What did I say, 4 feet? No, that would be wrong. 4 inches is much better. Can you see this? There's a copper around the tree. You see how that flanges out? So the slugs come up here, and they can't climb. The snails come up, and they can't come up. But if you can see, there's 3 or 4 inches of snails right there. Snails and slugs will eat young bark. They will eat the fruit on the trees. They will eat the things that have fallen off the trees. Okay. I've had no luck with coffee grounds. I use it as a soil amendment, and the slugs just kind of go right through it. The acidity, I think, was the idea that it would bother the slugs and the snails. Didn't matter. Salt kills them, but it doesn't kill them. It doesn't kill competing generations. It just kills that slug at that time, and they kind of melt. But what's wrong with salt is that if you use it too often, it can contaminate your soil. So that's not something you really want to do. Eggshells are good if they're thick enough and they're wide enough. This little guy up here, he doesn't care how many shells are out there, and he actually might eat some of the shell to get something in his gizzard so he can process the food. So it has to be wide enough. If this is the trunk, you want to start here. If it's a hossa and the hossa leaf touches, then the slug will go right up here. So you have to extend the shells beyond the leaves. That's the key, to make them thick. And then as soon as they get mushy, you need to start over. So if you've got a chicken house, that would really work well. Natural predators. Everybody likes to eat slug. It's dog eat dog out there. Other invertebrates will eat them. They especially like the eggs. So if you have a healthy environment, then you have a lot of natural predators that will go to it. Chickens love them. It's like going to the deli. It's a tasty part of it. Okay, traps work, but if you give up, the slug and the snail a place to hide during the hot summer days. And so you check them in the morning, and then because as soon as the sun comes up and the weather starts warming up and the soil starts warming up, then they go and hide. So check them in the morning. If you've got lettuce, which they really like, then you can pick them up and start over again. Grapefruit works really well. Beer, they love beer. They love the scent of the yeast is coming. And what they found is pale beer, like Bud Light, they're not so attractive because it doesn't have that strong beer flavor. And if you use beer traps, they're good for about 3 days, and then the smell dissipates. The key is getting something deep enough so that when they fall in, they aren't able to climb out like these guys. They come in, got to think, and then they go right back out. So and it works. One doesn't work, 20 works better. The key is remembering where you put those 20 in the fall when you do cleanup, because it's nasty. You get all those dead slug and slime sitting. Vinegar works well, half and half. You just spray it and they melt like a slug. Like salt does. But again, you want to be careful where you hit them. On the concrete doesn't matter, but if you hit in the soil or around grass, then it can burn the grass. Okay. We're metaldehyde baits. So, as I said, my dog and most animals are attracted to the movement. They have to taste it once. Metaldehyde products are very good. They're very deadly. What they do is they prohibit the slug or snail from creating moisture. So if they basically dehydrate. But if they can get the water, or that suddenly rains, or the sprinkler comes on, then they can survive. But they are so deadly to other animals, fish, birds, and vertebrates, that you have to think about it. And they're really pushing you. So be careful. What you want to look at is the top ingredient is metaldehyde. And now they found that because metaldehyde has been used for over 100 years, that the slugs and snails are developing a defense against it, so they're adding carbaryl, which is even more deadly. So you have to really be careful where you put it down. It's extremely efficient, you just have to be aware of what you're doing. Iron phosphate is what I use because it's a natural ingredient, and if my dog eats it, I don't care. But how it works is it destroys the metabolism inside the slug or snail, and they can't process food, they feel full, so they starve to death in 3 to 6 days. Well, you don't care, because now they're not eating, and I have really good luck with it. And if the slugs and the snails don't eat all the little white pellets, then it just dissolves and becomes an addition, an amendment to your soil. This is a picture of a drinking fountain at the Oregon Gardens. My friend took it for me because it's slightly easier. So what you do is you use many different ways of controlling them. You can reduce, but you can never eradicate the problem. You combine your different methods. What you want to do is start baiting right now. Till a little bit. If you have a scuffle hole, you can stick it up and get maybe eggs so that predators eat it. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.